Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my Week 6 Top 25 predictions. Sorry for missing last week's. I had a video planned, tried to get it out at a certain point, but I left earlier than I thought for a vacation, and I didn't really get anything out, even though a lot of crazy stuff happened last week, like the Kentucky versus Ole Miss game, which I really wanted to cover. But I'm back, trying to get this out before 6, before the games start this Friday. But let's not say too much. Like and subscribe, have a comment always helps. Let's get straight into this thing. Tonight we've got Michigan State versus Oregon, and I'm interested in this one a little bit because Oregon is finally starting to settle into a spot we thought they were going to be in. You know, they struggled week 1 with Idaho, barely beat Boise State, but then they turn around and clobbered Oregon State and clobbered UCLA, which are nobody really too special. Michigan State is a step up above those two teams, and Boise State's really turning out to be quite the football team right now, so that 3-point win actually might look a little bit better than it did then. But Michigan State, to be honest, first off, the head coach is the Oregon State or former Oregon State head coach, so he kind of knows this guy already. They've played before, and Michigan State doesn't look to be like absolutely awful. They took a beating from Ohio State, so this would be like if Michigan State kind of competes at home or on the road against Oregon, you kind of wonder how Oregon's going to perform against Ohio State. But I think Michigan State might actually perform. They only took a 4-point loss on the road to Boston College. They beat Maryland on the road, and they're 3-2. I'm not saying that really I expect them to do good. I think Oregon's kind of falling into their spot we thought they were going to be in at the start of the year, getting all the transfers and stuff and being such a high NIL team, to say the least. I think they're finally going to start putting teams away where they should be, and Oregon's finally starting to get situated. Although, there's reason for people to be sketched out. I think we shouldn't just, jump to conclusions. Oregon might be getting settled in. Missouri at Texas A&M. I find this one kind of interesting because really I just think it's absurd. It's like at one side of me thinks it's absurd how it's like, oh man, like how is Texas A&M favored in this game? They lost to Notre Dame, but you also look at Missouri and they beat Boston College at home by 6 points, and they beat Vanderbilt in double overtime, both in their home stadium. They're now hitting the road and going to Texas A&M, and it's like, are they really going to be able to perform? Now, there's one key factor here, and it's how is their offense, mainly their quarterback, going to perform, because it seems like the weak link is their quarterback. Their quarterback doesn't seem to have much of a turnover problem, although last year he sure as crap did. But for whatever reason, Missouri over Vanderbilt has 120 more yards, yet it's going into double overtime with no turnovers except for a turnover on downs. Both teams were very even. Actually, Vanderbilt had 93 yards of penalties to Missouri's 33. Missouri converted more third downs than Vanderbilt, had more first downs. How are they only putting up 30 points? It's like, is Missouri just not finishing the job? Well, there's a missed field goal there, so that technically counts as a turnover on downs, but then they have a turnover on downs later. I guess they missed a couple field goals in that game, but whatever. What I'm trying to say is Missouri has the capabilities, but I'm not sure if they've really got the capabilities because they can't put up the points even though their offense is there. And that comes down to is the quarterback going to be able to get their team into the end zone? Because you could put your kicker out there as much as you like. But in a game like this Kyle Field it always has that momentum and that energy. You're not just going to be able to keep sending out your kicker. This is also probably going to be a much tougher defense than Vanderbilt or Boston College, But yet against those teams, it took you 2 overtimes to get up to 30 points. And against Boston College, you only got 27 points, and it took you all game to get that. Like, are you even really going to score points against Texas A&M? On the other side of the spectrum, though, you've got Texas A&M, a team that has been very sketchy. But also, there's reason to believe in Texas A&M again, because in that first game against Notre Dame, their defense locked up. I mean, their defense absolutely locked up, but their quarterback was hideous for Texas A&M in that game. 12 for 30, 100 yards, 2 interceptions. He was awful for Texas A&M. And that was all they needed to make a quarterback switch. And it seems from the quarterback switch that Texas A&M has more life back there. They have been sort of scraping by. Now, a 13-point win against Florida on the road, in which Texas A&M was at one point up 33-7. So that's a domination. But hosting Bowling Green, it's like they only win 26-20. They only win by 6 points. But it's also like Bowling Green also played Penn State really well. So Bowling Green might actually just be that football team, that little group of 5 team, barely beating Arkansas. Arkansas is a couple plays away from being 5-0 and one of the best teams, or one of the most highly regarded teams in the SEC right now. Seriously, if you look at it, they are a couple plays, a couple mistakes away from being 5-0 and one of the most highly regarded teams in the SEC right now. Major sleeper team, but Texas A&M managed to put them away. I want to take Texas A&M in this football game. There's reason to believe in Texas A&M. There's reason to doubt Missouri. But there's also reason to believe in Missouri and reason to doubt Texas A&M. So it's up in the air for me, and I'm going to take my unpopular opinion on this, and I think I'm going to take Missouri. I'm going to take number 9 Missouri to go on the road and beat the defense in a low-scoring battle, because also Missouri's defense seems to be actually fairly good. Again, they still, like, when Missouri's offense is not putting up that many points against actually tough opponents, their defense is, after all, holding their opponents to less. Let's be real. That Boston College game literally required a muff snap, turn around, heave it deep down the sidelines for like 60 yards, 67 yards. That's what the number is. And from that point on, Missouri's defense, that was with 9 minutes and 44 seconds left in the second quarter. Missouri's defense held them scoreless until the final 3 minutes and 45 seconds. They held them scoreless. Again, I know it's Boston College. It's still up in the air whether Boston College is good like that, but against Vanderbilt, Vanderbilt was a back-and-forth game, but ultimately in the 4 quarters, you hold them scoreless until overtime, and it's a lot harder to hold teams scoreless in overtime because you're gassed and the field is different. But you held them to 20 points in 4 quarters. So on one side, you've got an offense that is struggling. And on the other side, you've got a defense that is performing. You've got a defense that is very much performing. So I think Missouri is going to prevail in this one. Hopefully you guys heard me through my rummaging. I literally just got back from my vacation, put everything away, and started crafting up a video because I need to get this done. I've disappeared from the channel without a trace. I don't want to leave this. I don't want to miss another prediction video. I'm going to try and get back into this. I fucked up last time, so I'm not going to try and fuck up this time, but I'm a little clobbered right now. So please, patience, I guess, is what I'm asking for. Next game, SMU at Louisville. Another super interesting game. Might I just say real quick about this week of football is every game, it's like you look at it from hindsight and you're like, there's not really any good games this week. But when you actually dive into it, there's a lot of good games this week. Missouri, Texas A&M seems like it could be a really good matchup. I didn't choose to do Syracuse UNLV because I've got a lot of faith in UNLV to win that game against Syracuse. So if you're counting that as a prediction, I'm saying UNLV will win. But even that game might be interesting, I just don't know too much about UNLV. I just don't know anything. If I did, I would have put it in. But again, I'm moving real fast right now. I'm just doing what I know, at least a little bit of. But back to this, SMU, Louisville. SMU took an early loss in the season to a team that people thought should be in the top 25 and stuff. They took an early loss in the season to BYU. And that was when everybody was like, okay, SMU's not that team. They're not good. But now you look at how BYU's starting to turn out, and a 3-point loss to BYU like that actually might not look like the worst thing in the world if you look at it. Their win against Nevada to open up the year, however, that one was definitely sketchy. Definitely sketchy. It was a road game, but this Nevada team, they are really, really struggling right now. 2-point win against Troy, who's a 1-win team. 3-point loss to Georgia Southern. Then they got shut out by Minnesota at Minnesota, and then they beat the crap out of some team, East Washington. SMU only beat this team by 5 points. That does not look too good. But again, hold them again. You're going to hold a team against something that happened 5 weeks ago. They've had plenty of time to bounce back and change things. And I think SMU has because, after that BYU loss, which was a very close and competitive game, they beat TCU 42-66. 42-66. That is a unbelievable game. That is a super high scoring game. But the funniest thing is their quarterback was 14 for 19, 137 yards and 2 touchdowns. You're telling me they scored 66 points when their quarterback only threw for 137 yards? Well, their running back had 18 carries for 127 yards and 3 touchdowns, as well as their quarterback scrambled for 41 yards. And other running backs put on a lot of yards. It was a running game for SMU. They had 238 yards of rushing. But it looks like, if I go over here real quick, it looks like there was some special teams and some major defense by SMU. A 51 fumble return to open up the game, sort of like halfway through the first quarter. A 69-yard punt return. And then we skip ahead a little bit. A 60-yard pick six. And that was it. That's the points. There's obviously other points that have been accumulated, but 3 touchdowns scored from not offense, that's really impressive. Now TCU, on the other hand, managed to put down 42 points, but they were also down by massive, massive amounts. And they put up, 14 of those in shit time when they were down 59-28. They put up a bunch of those points in shit time. So it's like, they really, really handled business here, even though TCU put up 42. That's not too nice to look at. Looks like SMU actually is a very solid team around the clock. And then you get the FSU game, which it's FSU. But if anything has been going for FSU, which I'll get to later, if anything has been going for them, it has 1,000% been their defense. They've been holding almost every team to below 30 points. The closest team that got there was Boston College. Georgia Tech, 24, Memphis, 20, Cal, 9. But then you get to this game, and all hell broke loose. This was like the Cardinals versus the Commanders. All hell broke loose. DJ Uyagandele threw 3 interceptions in this game. That is atrocious. Those were all 3 turnovers. He played horribly in this game. You really can't expect anything different there. Their quarterback threw for more yards in this game. He completed more passes. He was 3 touchdowns. The running back again ran all over the place. SMU again just takes another step forward. And they're actually starting to look like a very complete team. They're starting to look like what we thought they could be. Give them time, they'll get there type of deal. Every team might start the season hot, fizzle out, or start off terrible and fix things and turn it out to be really good. Louisville just took a 7-point loss at Notre Dame, which a lot of people are going to hold Notre Dame against that NIU loss for the rest of their lives, it seems like. But really, I don't think that loss should determine the fate for Notre Dame entirely, because they turn around and Notre Dame actually performs very well, and they beat Louisville. Again, a loss to Northern Illinois is just room to learn. If Riley Leonard didn't throw that interception towards the end of the game, dude, the game could have gone a completely different way. It could have just been a close game that Notre Dame won, but a whole bunch of mistakes in that game led to their demise, and people just want to say, oh, they lost to Northern Illinois. They're obviously not good. No, Notre Dame deserves to be in the top 25. I think they, deserve to be in the top 15 still. After seeing how the season has played out a little bit, obviously I'm quick to jump the gun after a loss to NIU, but still, Riley Leonard is, a lot of people question him. In the game against Louisville, he was 17 for 23, 163 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then on the floor, 52 yards and a touchdown. That's a dual threat if I've ever heard one. Their running back, Jeremiah Love, was held to less rushing yards than the quarterback himself at 11 carries and 34 yards. They couldn't figure out how to stop a super dual threat action. Yet, Louisville only lost by 7 points on the road. And they had 3 turnovers and failed. Oh my God. Hold on. Now that I'm looking at this, I didn't look at this before. Hold up, rewind, take it back a little bit. Louisville went for 5 fourth downs, and they only converted 1 of them. They failed the other 4, as well as they turned the ball over 3 times. They gave the ball away 7 times. Now, Notre Dame failed a 4th down conversion, and they fumbled the ball twice, so they gave the ball back 3 times, but that's still a 4-turnover trade. And they still only lost by 7 points. That's remarkable. This is, again, what I'm saying. This is a learning game. This is a learning game. It looks like they just didn't want to settle for field goals type of deal. What looks like one of their 4th down failures came like at the end of the game when they basically had no choice to go for it. But earlier in the game, they probably could have gone for, more field goals and stuff, more punts. Yeah, at 4th and 1 at the Notre Dame 15, you take your 3. Could have taken your 3 there. Up here, you've got at the 49. If 4th and 6 at the 49, yeah, whatever. It's a learning game for Louisville. That is completely game-changing information. Wow, that is game-changing information. I didn't even look at that. They gave the ball away. We'll say 6 since one of them came in. No, I mean, the game was still in play at then. They gave them 7. No, because it wouldn't matter. They gave them 6 turnovers. 6 total changes. 6 total possession changes. I'm going to take Louisville in a high-scoring game. Although now that you look at it, Louisville might have a really good defense that they could absolutely stomp SMU, but these are both really good games. You see what I'm saying at the start? Like, these are 2 good teams, and there's a lot of good matchups this week. It's hard. It's hard to be the predictor, man. Gosh. They always watch my videos, but they never ask how the predictor's doing type of deal. Bro, like, this is difficult now that I think about it. I kind of just rushed through it and knew what I knew about SMU, thought I knew what I knew about Louisville. Dang, man. All right. I'll stick with this score. It happened for a reason. Don't mind me and my craziness right now. But that's quite a impressive but not impressive performance by Louisville against Notre Dame. They very easily could have walked away with that game. Iowa at Ohio State. Again, another game that I think could be slipping under the radar. Did you guys even remember that Iowa was a football team? After their loss to Iowa State, they fell out of the rankings. They lost to Little Brother. Now everybody wants to talk about Iowa State, and people are putting Iowa State in their top 10s. Yet they haven't really played anybody other than Iowa. They could be right. They could be very wrong. But one thing is true about Iowa: their running back is the 2nd rushing leader right now, as well as they always have a super good defense. Iowa. Their loss to their rival, they lost by 1 point. And Iowa State might be a very good team. But still, let's give them some credit. Now, it is Ohio State. And obviously, Ohio State is one of the best football teams in the country right now. Kind of flying under the radar because they haven't gotten an opportunity to play anybody yet. I think this could be one of those games where it's tough because either Ohio State's going to break out and absolutely just clobber this defense. There's just going to be too much to handle. Or Iowa's going to lock up early on and take this game for a while. Now, there's no way in a million years I'm saying Iowa wins this game. There's no way I'm saying Iowa wins this game. But I think it could be close and competitive up until the fourth when Ohio State puts the game away type of deal, if you guys understand what I'm saying. Kind of like Oregon versus Idaho. Thank you. Kind of like Oregon versus Idaho, you know? So like a type of deal like that. I just think, when the spotlight falls off of these teams and they disappear into oblivion, it's like they might want to give this team their best shot. They're from Iowa fans and whatnot. They're not ranked. They don't think they've got it. This is the game they need to perform. This is the game they've been waiting for type of deal, you know? Kind of like how all the group of 5 teams feel when they go into their non-conference against a team that's paying them millions of dollars. Kind of like NIU. They wait for this game all year type of deal. This has been a highlight on their schedule. They're going to give Ohio State their best shot. But there's a little part of me, a little eeny part of me that did not take too much of a toll here that says Ohio State could roll over Iowa. But I think Iowa's going to give them a hard time. Ole Miss at South Carolina. Now, obviously, Ole Miss just lost to Kentucky. And South Carolina barely lost to LSU in a game they really should have at least taken to overtime type of deal. Now you meet these two teams that were beaten down, embarrassed, sad. This is their bounce back time, and they're playing each other. Now, South Carolina, I guarantee you they're going to be at this football game. The fans are going to be there. It's going to be loud. I'm not sure if South Carolina got really affected by this hurricane, but I'm sure that the East Coast is going to have a lot of emotions in them right now after what's going on over there. It's just utter devastation over there, what happened. So they are really going to try. They're going to have a lot of emotion going into these football games. And both sides are going to have a lot of emotion. So it's going to be fun to watch this one. It's just going to be a passion football game. It's going to come down to who's the better team, though. And the better team is Ole Miss. And I think South Carolina, they played close competitive football with LSU. But as you're starting to look at it, I'm starting to lose my faith in LSU. Starting to lose the hype. They lost to USC by 7 points to start the year. But as time goes on, they let Nichols score 21 points. They obviously barely beat South Carolina by 3 points, and their kicker missed the kick to go into overtime. They beat UCLA by 17. They let UCLA score 17 points on them. By the way, Indiana beat UCLA 42-14 in UCLA's home stadium. And then they beat the crap out of South Alabama, but it's like, who's that? I'm starting to look at LSU and say, yeah, you guys do have a solid quarterback and a solid offense, but in terms of your defense, again, it's starting to look a little shaky. And then it's like that USC LSU game looked so good and looked like defensive, but USC just lost to Michigan. LSU struggling with South Carolina. It's like, are we seeing two teams that were extremely overranked that happen to play each other type of deal? There's question marks everywhere. Ole Miss losing to Kentucky is not a loss that I look at that should be in vain. Now, I will say, if you want to look at it from this, Kentucky went into Ole Miss and won by 3 points. South Carolina went into Kentucky and won 31-6. But obviously, that was another sort of learning game. Definitely a game they needed to change some things against South Carolina, because that was absolutely terrible from Kentucky. Their quarterback, Brock Vandagriff, was 3 for 10, 30 yards and a pick against South Carolina. There was obviously some major changes that needed to happen or something, because then the next week they lost to Georgia by a point. Then they kicked the crap out of Ohio, and then they hit the road and beat Ole Miss. So obviously Kentucky made some changes. I don't want to use that as an example. They definitely fixed some things up there. I think Ole Miss has got this one against South Carolina. I would like to take an upset here, but I'm not taking back-to-back upsets. If that happens, Ole Miss was so overranked, but I think Ole Miss has got this one. Indiana at Northwestern. I don't really know anything. I'll say that again since I was far away from my mic. I don't really know anything about Indiana football right now, but what I do know is they're 5-0. Yeah, that's what I do know. But who have they played? That's the real thing here. They've been trouncing opponents. Their closest game being against Maryland, but also they were up 42-21 in that game. It was a tie game in the third quarter before they just took it away. Their quarterback looks like he is performing at an elite level right now. And they seem to have a very high-powered offense. And Northwestern, they lost in double overtime at home to Duke, who's undefeated. So it's like, yeah, but they also, they lost 24-5 against Washington. When did this game even get played, bro? I don't even know that. I didn't even know that game got played. Yeah, they lost 24-5. Like, they were shut out by Washington's defense. So I don't know. I don't think Northwestern's that good of a team. But this is one of those games. So Indiana 5-0, they get all this hype. Everybody's like, wow, look at Indiana football. Now the spotlight's on them. And you have to hit the road and go to Northwestern, who's not even playing in a home stadium right now. I think they're under like massive renovations and stuff. I kind of think this one might be close. I kind of think Indiana's going to slip up here. I think they're going to make mistakes, and they're going to start letting it get to their head. Either that or they're going to trounce this team, and the mistakes will come later when they play like real teams. It could either be that, but I'm going to take the gamble and say that this one's going to be close. I don't know too much about Indiana. They're definitely America's team right now. If their teams aren't doing any good. But Indiana has to play Northwestern. They get to host Nebraska, host Washington at Michigan State. Dude, this team could literally be like freaking 9-0 going into that game. They even get to host Michigan. They could be 10-0 if you think about it. But they have to hit the road and play Ohio State. I mean, Indiana's got the schedule to be a freaking playoff team. But who knows? They might slip up. They're Indiana. Clemson at FSU. I chose to include this one because I still have not given up faith on FSU. I'm just kidding. I really have. DJ Uiagalelei is just not the quarterback to get this done, and I kind of said it at the start of the year. I don't really know if I said it in a video, but I definitely said it to people around me that I was like, dude, Florida State taking DJ is such a mistake, bro. Like, people say he did good at Oregon State, but I really disagree. Or they say he did better than he did at Clemson at Oregon State. I really got to disagree because if that Oregon State team the year before, all they needed was that quarterback spot to be filled, and they were a playoff team. And then you think they got a quarterback to fill that, and the team got worse than the last year. Obviously, they lost a lot, but they got worse. And you look at his numbers and stuff, and he really wasn't that quarterback that you needed. He was the same as the last guy. Now he's going over to try and take the starting spot in an FSU team that lost a lot to the draft, transfer portal, you name it. They lost a lot. As well as they were, in terms of motivation, they were devastated by that. Barely missing the playoffs to Alabama. Obviously, huge controversy. And you put DJ Uiagalelei at the helm. We should have expected this happen. But, of course, they were preseason number 10. But the thing is this is a rivalry. Mike Norvell beat Cal, but then he got killed by SMU. I think this one could be close because FSU's got a good defense. It's a road game, and Clemson might make mistakes. Or Clemson could just keep on trouncing opponents like they have since their fall apart against Georgia. Could go two ways again. This is kind of what this video is going to be, is just, pick and choose. Is it going to be domination? Is it going to be close? I think I'm going to try and put a little bit of faith into Florida State, but I'm not too sure. Tennessee at Arkansas. I'll just say it now, the one upset I've picked this week. Again, Arkansas is a couple mistakes away from being 5-0 and one of the most talked about teams in the SEC. They were up 21-7 on Oklahoma State. They let Oklahoma State climb all the way back into that game, man. They let them climb all the way back into that game. They even threw a pick six in this game, man. They missed a field goal earlier in the game. They couldn't convert on 4th and 4, which was a big mistake after they didn't trust their kicker to kick. They also failed a 4th down conversion. Okay, that thing is glitched out. I'd love to tell you where he failed the 4th down conversion, but it's just completely wrong. While Oklahoma State definitely had their fair share of mistakes, Arkansas stick out like a sore thumb, mainly because they were owning that game against Oklahoma State, and they just let Oklahoma State climb all the way back in the 4th quarter, and they lost in double overtime. Then they beat UAB, they beat Auburn on the road, and they barely lose to Texas A&M in a defensive game again. And it's like this team is literally a couple plays away from being undefeated. You look at the stats of the Arkansas Texas A&M game. They gave the ball away 4 times. They had 3 normal turnovers. They failed a 4th down conversion. They failed one of the 3 4th down conversions. They had 100 more yards of offense than Texas A&M, and they lost by 4 points in a defensive battle. They even had more penalty yards. They're just a couple mistakes away from being 5-0 and one of the most talked about teams in the SEC. Now, Tennessee, on the other hand, a lot of people are saying Tennessee and this quarterback could be the number 1 team in the nation. But who are their wins again? Who are their wins? NC State and Oklahoma. A lot of people want to give this team a whole heap and load of credit for their win against Oklahoma on the road. And yes, Oklahoma has a good defense, but they almost lost to Auburn. And Auburn's not that good of a football team from what we know. Oklahoma's offense, not that good. Oklahoma's defense, very solid. But still, hold them to 25 points. I think as time goes on, eventually Oklahoma's going to drop out of the top 25. They've got way too difficult of a schedule. They've got, on the 12th, they play Texas. Then they get to host South Carolina. They'll win that. They go on the road to Ole Miss, host Maine, on the road to Missouri, host Alabama, on the road to LSU. They're not lasting in the top 25. They're going to get trounced in the second half of the year. And Tennessee beat them by 10 points. It's like, yeah, and then their other win is NC State. It's like 51-10. Oh, nice. But, dude, they just got absolutely killed by Clemson and whatnot. Yeah, they put up 35 points, but that was shit time. Clemson put up more points in the first half than Tennessee did all game type of deal. I'm just starting to look at it, and I want to be a Tennessee fan here because I love the color orange, but it's just like I think Arkansas is going to put stuff together. They're going to put the pieces together and finally be the team that they need to be right now because they are good. They're a couple mistakes away from being 5-0, and that happens to football teams. But again, I'll say it one more time this video. Those games were learning games, man. The start of the year, losing then does not mean the year is over. And they've definitely taken the time to learn from that. I think Arkansas might win this one against Tennessee. Michigan at Washington. So this is the final one I chose to put up here today. Michigan has to hit the road at Washington. And if you watched my Big Ten predictions at the start of the year, I said Washington will win this one. I'm standing by it. So I said the Tennessee Arkansas was my only upset. I guess this would be the upset, but not really because Washington's favored. So technically not. Washington, they lost to Washington State, which Washington State's only loss is a clobberation by Boise State. But I think as time goes on, people will realize Boise State and UNLV are the 2 Group of 5 teams that are standing above the rest right now. They are the teams to run the table with Bowling Green looking in from the outside. Maybe, no, not Texas State, but maybe that Sam Houston team. Not sure about them yet. But, Washington State rivalry game, they almost did it to Washington the year they went to the Natty. They almost beat them. That game's going to be that game. Home field advantage don't matter. That's a big-time rivalry there. Washington turns around and beats Northwestern. Then they take a 3-point loss to the undefeated Rutgers. I also think Rutgers are going to be a good team this year. I think they're going to be like a 3-loss team. Going into this game, the Will Rogers quarterback for Washington, he has been very, very good and under the radar. He is 110 for 147 on the year, 1,354 yards, 10 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. That's huge. That is huge. Now, the quarterback for Michigan, I'm not sure if this is the correct quarterback that they started playing or the switch. It doesn't look like it. It looks like the other quarterback is incorrect, so we won't talk about his stats. Running game, obviously Michigan's, kind of reliant on the feet, but that hasn't really looked like the best for them this year. Washington is like they're both of their leading running backs are right next to each other. I think Washington's going to take this one because of that home field. That's pretty much it. Michigan got a nice, good comeback win against USC to just completely, absolutely piss me off because they shouldn't have won that game because they barely beat Minnesota the next week in their home stadium. And Minnesota lost to North Carolina, who North Carolina got killed by James Madison. It's like, bro, you shouldn't be playing that close of game. It's just, for whatever reason, USC felt the need to drop one. Miller Moss went 28 for 51, 283 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. Bro, if you're throwing the ball that much, you got to complete some more passes. That's unbelievable. But I think Washington's got this one. For the other games this week that I didn't choose to put up here, USC at Minnesota. Obviously, Minnesota just played Michigan tough. Both teams lost by the exact same score to Michigan on the road. I don't think Minnesota is going to be able to beat USC, however. I think USC's got this one. Baylor at Iowa State, kind of interesting because Baylor they've played pretty tough. They played BYU sort of tough. I mean, they had to come back. They went into overtime with Colorado. They kind of got beat up pretty good by Utah. So I'm taking Iowa State there. And then Miami at Cal. I'm taking Miami. Now, Miami should have lost to Virginia Tech. That should have been a Hail Mary completion, but they're 5-0 still. And I don't mind that they're 5-0 still because I do think they are very good. So that's all for this video. Sorry for my absence. I'm going to try and be more active. I'm trying really hard, I promise. A like and subscribe would help. A comment always helps, and that's all for me. Adios.